And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's The Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and everyone who's always had a good time shopping. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And what a beautiful day it's been here on Milleronia. We love it here very much. And yes, it's true, I have volcanoes. And yes, it's true, I make the weather myself. And yes, it's true, I do anything that strikes me as interesting with time. But you know what? Milleronia sells itself. And it does. I love it. Colonel Jeff loves it too. And you know what? As always, of course, boy, that music makes us feel so good. That's, of course, the Johnny Jones Orchestra and the Freddie Oversteegen Dancers, featuring boy tenor Mike Lucking, asking the musical question, if I'm as think as you drunk I am, then why are you unfocused? Good question, Mike. If I'm as think as you drunk I am, then why are you unfocused? Mike, that one's fun. We love you over here and are grateful you've sent in so many fine musical questions. Now, take the advice of your old pal Larry, brush your teeth, knock back a big pitcher of water, and get yourself a good 8-hour nap. And then tomorrow, well, you'll worry about that tomorrow. Have some nice dreams, and thank you. Send us some more great thoughts. And by the way, Johnny Jones is a nice fella. He's an interesting guy. His 3-year-old son loves, he wrote us, his 3-year-old loves when I say Milleronia, and cracks up every time, and that makes me and the Colonel very happy. And we're smiling now just thinking of it. Boy, you know what? And Johnny says, hey, next time you're in Baltimore, for me and the Colonel, he said there's a place he likes called Birds of a Feather. He's offered to take us there for a drink. And, Johnny, I can tell you what, that will happen. Now, I don't know when. I have no plans to come to Baltimore. But the Colonel and I will do that. Heck, maybe we'll do a show from Baltimore. You never know. But great bar name, Birds of a Feather in Baltimore. And I'll bet that's a good place. Thank you, Johnny. And, you know what? You'll see us sooner than you think. I don't know when, but you'll see us. And remember something to your son, Milleronia. And now, by the way, folks, Freddie Oversteegen just deserves a good word here. What an interesting story. What an interesting life. She just passed away at 92. And get this. She was a Dutch resistance fighter in the Second World War. She started at 14, and she and her 2 sisters would shoot Nazis from their bicycles. They would drive by, they'd see a pack of them, and these 3 young girls would drive by and fight and kill Nazis. And by the way, she also became a saboteur, and they taught her how to blow up tracks and bridges, and as early as the 1930s, her family hid Jewish people who were fleeing the Nazis. And so this is quite a family. And at that point, a Dutch underground leader persuaded her to join the resistance, and their mother agreed and gave them only one rule: always stay human. Now, just think about that. That doesn't sound like such a crackling idea, but it really is. Boy, oh boy. And you know what? We'd welcome them all on Milleronia. And by PayPal. That's right, PayPal. PayPal, a terrific organization. And you know what? If you enjoy my show, and why wouldn't you, and you'd like to send us a few bucks to help out, and why wouldn't you? You can do it through PayPal. It's a terrific group. And you know what? Frankly, instead of saying donate this or pay what you like, I always join the Platinum Committee. I always like to say, buy us some drinks. And I leave it at that because there are different levels 1 through 5, all the way up to... We're driving to Florida! I love that guy's voice, that woo, yeah. But do that, folks. You know what? Look for the PayPal banner on our website. And that's, of course, LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the Mountain? Tom Mix. Steve Reich! That's a good one. I like that. Steve Reich. When umps, can you imagine that, folks? You know, watching umps work in the 1920s or the 1930s, and I mean at a live game. Steve Reich! When they'd really pump that right arm down, strike! You know, they were good. They were a big part of the game. They still are, but you know what? Those were the days also when a saucy manager, like Leo DeRocher or the great Billy Martin, would come out and they would kick dirt all over the ump's shoes. And, you know, no one ever thought that was anything so weird. But if you think about it, wow, that's a real disagreement. So you know what? Go to our website, though. You can get there on your computer or your iPhone or any way. There's so many ways to do it. But we have a banner that says PayPal. Go there, and you know what? Every little bit helps us keep the old leg lamp lit. And thank you to everyone who's contributed already, and thank you to everyone who's about to. It means a lot to us, and, well, we're glad you're with us. I sure am, and so is Colonel Jeff. And that brings me to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. And this is a pretty good one. The Colonel and I both like this. There's a married fella in a good house on a nice street, and he's getting pretty mad. He knows his wife is having an affair with the neighbor, and his head is ready to pop. And he goes and he gets an assassin, and he says to the guy, you know what? I want you to get my wife and whack her. And the assassin says, just so we're clear on this, I get $10,000 a bullet. And the guy says, all right. Well, wait a minute. What if you miss? And the assassin says, I never miss. And sure enough, the two of them stand outside the house on Tuesday night, and he's supposed to be out of town for a couple of days. And sure enough, at a certain point, knock on the door, in comes the neighbor, and he and the wife just jump all over each other. They're hugging and kissing and hugging and kissing more and fondling, and they're just grabbing each other, and they can't do it. And then he starts to unbutton her shirt, and she starts to unbutton his, and the guy is going crazy, and he says to the assassin, all right, now, you know what? I want you to get the guy, too. I want you to get the neighbor, too. And I mean right between the legs, just blow them apart. And the assassin says, remember that 20,000. Okay, I'll get it. That's fine. That's 2 bullets. I don't care. Get him. And the assassin's got that rifle up there, and he's looking at him, and he's just got him, and they're watching, and these two are, getting at it. And then they start getting intimate and, getting a little more than intimate. And they start changing positions, and she's moving around and he's moving around, and the husband's outside. He's saying to the assassin, what are you waiting for? Come on, get him right now. Get both of them. And the assassin says to him, well, wait, take it easy. Just give me a couple of more minutes and I'll save you $10,000. That's a pretty good one. We like that here. And by the way, that was sent in by listener Nick Dwyvetter, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Nick Dwyvetter. And thank you, Nick. That's a good one. And as always, folks, if you like the joke of the week, pass it on and keep it going to friends or family. And perhaps not to 3-year-olds, but you know what? I think a 3-year-old would like that one too, especially here on Milleronia. Yay! And that brings me to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. Boy, big cough or not, that always makes me smile. That's beautiful music and a beautiful string quartet. And this one is Sonnet 75, and the title is, So Are You to My Thoughts as Food to Life. And isn't that beautiful? And, well, it ought to be. It's written by a man named William Shakespeare. And here it is. So are you to my thoughts as food to life. So are you to my thoughts as food of life, or as sweet seasoned showers are to the ground, and for the peace of you I hold such strife, as twixt a miser and his wealth is found. Now proud as an enjoyer, and anon, doubting the filching age will steal his treasure, now counting best to be with you alone, then bettered that the world may see my pleasure. Sometimes all full with feasting on your sight, and by clean starved for a look, possessing or pursuing no delight, save what is had, or must from you be took. Thus do I pine and surfeit day by day, or gluttoning on it all, or all away. Boy, that's beautiful. And that man, I hope you know, as William Shakespeare, not only a magnificent playwright, but a writer in so many great things. And Sonnet 75, that wasn't the first one he wrote. That means there was 74 before that. Oh, boy, he's always been so great. And by the way, you may be interested to know, I've worked with Anne Hathaway a couple of times, and I just love her. She's a wonderful woman, a great actress, and just fun to be with. And I'm looking forward to seeing her again the next time we're on something or appearing somewhere. And I'm going to say, it's good to see you, Mrs. Shakespeare. And when she looks at me and smiles and says, What did you call me? Do you know what William Shakespeare's wife's name was? Anne Hathaway. And spelled the same way, Anne with an E. But at any rate, folks, William and his wife, Anne, sure knew something about great poems, thanks to William Shakespeare. Which brings me to my third favorite part of the show, the Magic Movie Moment. Folks, this is a great movie, and I hope you've seen it or will soon. Miller's Crossing from 1990. It's written, directed, and produced by the Coen brothers, and boy, they sure know what they're doing, don't they? Starring, what a cast, Gabriel Byrne, Albert Finney, Marcia Gay Harden, John Turturro, John Polito, and so many. The cast is so much larger and so wonderful. And in this movie, boy, folks, Albert Finney plays the head of one big faction of the gangs. This is during Prohibition. So they're shipping in and selling liquor that's illegal, and they're doing all sorts of things with women and prostitution. They do everything, and gambling, and they're under siege. You know, that they're at war with another one of the big gangs in the area, headed by the great John Polito, and I worked with him. I like him a lot. He's passed on since. What a great actor. You've seen him in 100 things. And at one point, John's gang decides to go get Albert Finney. They go to his house, and it's at night. It's around 9 or 10 at night. And Finney, boy, oh boy, talk about a great actor also. He's in bed in his pajamas, and he's got a cigar, and he's just puffing away at it, and he's reading something, but suddenly he hears something. He hears everything. He knows everything. He's very good at this. What a good actor. And he just kind of looks up and out his bedroom door, and he's not scared and he's not panicked. He's just good at what he does. And he gets out of the bed, and he puts his bathrobe on, and he ties the sash and slips his slippers on, and he, with the cigar still in his mouth, he bends down under the bed, pulls out a Tommy gun, and he just gets that locked and loaded, and he walks resolutely but unafraid out his bedroom door, and he just listens and looks and sees this one fella on the roof outside the window, and he just and he just knocks that guy, blows him away, and then another fella, then another couple of fellas. Finney is great at this. He's really something. And he walks downstairs, and with the cigar still in his mouth, and he opens the front door and walks out. And these guys now have had enough. They realize they made the wrong choice here, trying to get him, and they run and get back into their car. Remember, this is Prohibition, so it was a 1927 Dodge or something like this, and they take off down the road. It's just a street where houses are, and Finney just calmly walks right out into the street and starts firing at that car as it tears away. And folks, he's just firing and firing with the cigar still in his mouth, and not just constantly, just brap, 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 and he's so good. The car is 50, 100 feet away, 200 feet away, and sure enough, when he's really just pouring it into this car, he gets them. And that car just shakes a little bit and slides right into a tree on the side of the road, and bam, into that tree. And, well, Finney still strolls after them, still firing, but he knows he's got them. And little fire starts in the car, and you know what happens with that. And it happens. It's just terrific. And Finney looks just to make sure. And then he turns around, takes the cigar out of his mouth, makes a big puff and blows the smoke out, and walks back to his house. Now, that's a terrific scene, and it's mentioned a couple of scenes later in the movie of, boy, you can't beat the boss with a Tommy gun. He's an artist. And you know what? In that scene, he was. It's a terrific movie. I hope you do see it. And that's another one of those that every time I do, boy, are they good. And the Coen brothers know how to tell a great story. Whew. And this is one of them. And what is a great story, by the way? And the reason I say it like that is because are the great moments in our lives all dramatic events like that? Good Lord, you got a Tommy gun under the bed and a lit cigar, and you just slip on your bedroom slippers. I mean, and the answer is, well, no, that's great to see and beautifully put together. But you know what? The great moments in our lives, yours and mine, well, sometimes, they don't feel very different from the way they do every other day, but they are. Those days and those moments are really something, and it's a good time to remember to stop and smell the roses and really enjoy what's going on. I was in our supermarket today, and that was one of those days. You realize that, it's rush hours before the Colonel came over, and I'm in the store and I park, and it's a nice parking spot. And I walked in, and you just get the feeling, I did, that it's so nice. A couple of people are walking by, And they smile at me, and I smile at them, and they're not cranky, and I'm not cranky. As I said, it's rush hour, but it doesn't feel tense. And you go into the store and take one of the carts from the big aisle there where they have them all, well, pushed together. And every sample seller smiles and the same thing, and I smile back. And a young woman said, would you like to sample some Jack Daniels here, whatever she was selling? And I said, no, thank you, but that's awfully nice. And same thing, we smiled at each other, and that means a lot. And I went to the washroom, and I washed my hands, and I like being as clean as I can, even in the supermarket. And so I'm ready. I get the cart again, and I'm strolling around. I know where to go. I know this place pretty well. And this is a big market. And maybe you get a nice piece of fish at the fish department, and the counterman, Preston, always comes around to shake my hand. And I always ask him, "Is you got anything special today?" And salmon, and he says, he never lies, by the way, he always says, "You know what? I do. I think I have something you'll like." And he goes in the back and brings out a nice piece, a big piece, and wraps it up. And he always asks after my family and tells me to wish my son in the service good luck, and says he'll be praying for them. And, well, that's another thing he's not kidding about, and it means a lot. And I say, "Thanks, pal," and we shake hands, and he goes back to behind his counter, and I go back down the aisle. And Patricia at the deli department smiles and tells you that the egg salad is good today. And it reminded me, and I always get a little sample of what they have. And I'll always get, of course, and have them put it and make a price on it and put it in the little plastic containers. And in fact, one of the folks from the store one day said to me, "You know what?" Because I always get something at the deli department there. And he said, "You know what? You could just," because sometimes I'll eat that and just, or a meatball, get one thing just for the stroll through the store. And he said, "You could just eat that and toss away the package. And, well, that, you'd be getting it for free." And I said to him with a smile, I like him and he likes me. And I said with a smile, "You know what? That's actually a great idea, except that would be stealing, wouldn't it?" And he kind of chuckled and he said, "You know what? You're right, it would." And I said, "All right, we'll see you next time." And I strolled along. Reminded me of my dad. God bless him, holding me up as a little boy at Dates Shopwell back on Long Island in our old neighborhood. And we would go there, and he would go, that's right, he would always go up to the counter and to get some lox, and it was sliced by hand in those days when I was a little baby, a kid, or a toddler. What would you call it? About 3-4 years old, like Johnny Jones's son. And so I was 3 or 4, and Dad would hold me up, and he'd say to the counterman, "You know what? I'd like a half a pound of lox, please." The Novi, which was from Nova Scotia. And the counterman, the nicest man. He always enjoyed when we came by. And I remember watching him slice because he had a tattoo on his left forearm of numbers in a row. And he had certainly had a part of his life that he survived, and was awfully glad to be a counterman at the Dates Shopwell when I was a kid on Long Island. And my dad would always say to him the same thing. He'd say, "I'm sure this is good. You always cut good lox, and but give my partner here a little sample because I need his opinion. If he doesn't like it, we're not going to get it." And of course, it's obvious my dad was kidding, and but he smiled, and he would smile and say, "Okay, but I think you're going to like it today." And I would smile and just not need to say anything. And he would cut a little piece and hand it to me across the counter, and I would take it and say thank you, and I'd put it in my mouth and chew it. And my dad would say, after I swallowed it, my dad would say, "Well, what do you think?" And I would smile and just nod at my dad, and then say back to the counterman, "It's really good. We'd like it, please." and he would chuckle and just wrap it up and hand it to us. These are great memories. That was a great moment in those days, and it made me think of it again in these days. And today in the store, well, you don't get cranky if the aisles are a little crowded, and I waited happily at the milk display without wondering why, well, this woman or that guy can't move faster. Don't worry about it. Or why that 8-year-old can't stop running and yelling, and why his parents don't make him just shut up and stand still, which they should, by the way. But if they don't, you know what? All right. So I'll stand there too. And these are also the trips where you feel so good. I picked up a jar of Mexican cheese with peppers in it that looks just perfect. It's in a clear jar, and it's orangey and the kind of thing. It's not so much of it where it's, I guess the jar is about 4 or 5 inches high. And when my wife sees it back home, she always says, like today, "Oh, why did you get this?" And you say, "The truth." I said, "You know what? I don't know." And she says, today she said, I know. Sometimes we all just get something because it looks good." And I said, "Yeah." And one of your kids calls later and you tell him you got it, but that you and mommy decided to put it in the pantry and save it for him. Which was a good idea, by the way. I don't need it. My wife doesn't need it, and we'll save it for him. And in the parking lot of the store, as I was going out with the cart, a young woman in her car who had pulled in next to me, and she was, well, God bless her, she was young, slightly dippy, and a little off, and she was, I don't know how old, 25, 30, something like that. And she said to me, "Oh, excuse me," and she had to put a big smile on. She said, "You know, I'm sorry to bother you, but you know, my boyfriend," as she was getting out of the car, and she said, he was mad at me, and he just said, you know, he asked me to get some beer, and I just stopped her with a smile, and I said, I held my hand up and just said, I didn't need to make her go through some tale like that, and I just said, "Do you need money?" And she just smiled and said, "Just $2. Yes, just $2 would be great." And I said, "You've got a deal." And I closed the door there in the car and took out my wallet, and I took out $2 and handed it to her, and she said, it was very sweet. She said, "Oh, that's awfully nice." She said, "Are you married?" And I said to her, "I am." And she said, it was very nice. She said, "Oh, the good ones are always taken." And she was, by the way, not unwell, but a little, as I said, a little dippy, maybe a little off mentally, and maybe just needed some help or just to relax a little bit. But I didn't care. It's the same thing about the day. And I opened the trunk and started putting things in, and I said, "You know what? Take care of yourself." And she looked at me and said, "You too." And folks, that's a great moment. And you know what? And that's as happy as she's been in years, I think. Not because I'm so special. Well, that's part of it. But no, seriously, she was so happy. I didn't need to hear her story. Just said, here's a couple of bucks. And I suggest you do that too, by the way. And when I got home and carrying the groceries upstairs, 4 or 5 bags to put them away, and well, at that point, Colonel Jeff was coming over in another hour or so, and to do our show. And the groceries up and down and going out, and it was a little hot out, and you know what? That takes about the last strength you have. My wife says hi, and the doggies are following the whole way, up and down. And you know what, folks? When you get all the stuff put away and fold the bags, when you wash up and change into your comfy house clothes and glance at the clock in the bedroom and realize, wow, I've got 23 minutes before Colonel Jeff gets here, I think I'll lay myself down with the dogs. And that's just what I did. And folks, those are the best 23 minutes in the world. You're not in Hawaii or Paris, and you're not going out with your wife to a fancy dinner. But I think that's time we all remember that all of us, you and me, yes, those 23 minutes before you call your kids back are the best in the world, aren't they? They sure are. And I know it and you know it. But as you already understand, we know the same things. Homer is Homer and Pluto is a planet. And even here on Milleronia. So remember, folks, as always, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to and someone there who cares about you, folks, the game's over and you've won. Be well and smile at someone else in the market today. We'll see you next time.